Hello, my name is Brandi Cannon, and I'm going to talk to you today about the conservation of the endangered American chaffseed. And I want you to think about this. You probably have all had this experience. You've tried to raise a plant. Tried to raise a plant, right? And you probably killed it because maybe you didn't give it enough water, or maybe you gave it too much water, or perhaps even you didn't have enough sunlight. Or maybe you forgot a key ingredient like fire. Maybe you forgot fire. So chaffseed is a very unique plant. It's classified by the Endangered Species Act as globally rare and endangered, and as if that happens because of habitat fragmentation due to land development. Now, as if Walmart parking lots replacing your home weren't enough, chaffseed is also a parasite. So this means that it goes through these circumstances where it can't provide its own nutrients and water for itself, so it has to penetrate through the host roots of other plants. And this leads to needing an ecosystem where those host plants can provide for chaffseed. So what happens when your ecosystem is constantly changing, though? So natural disturbances like fire are very important to these types of ecosystems because they reduce the large amounts of woody plants like pine trees and shrubs. Now, when you do this, you make more room for those host plants to grow, as well as allow for more light to shine through. Of course, this leads to the next topic at hand, which is about natural disturbances and fire. Why is fire important? So fire is important because studies indicate that after fire, roots have a flush of growth, which means that underground, they're trying to take in all the nutrients that they can get so they can reproduce that above ground vegetation like leaves, stems, and even flowers. So these are the types of host plants that chaffseed often parasitizes. You have forbs, or sunflower-like plants, grasses, and understory shrubs. A section of my thesis addresses two important factors, and that is root traits, how they vary amongst these types of host plants I mentioned, and fire presence, how do root traits vary in the presence and absence of fire. So my thesis hypothesizes if fire occurs, then there's more root growth. But if there's more root growth in these types of host plants, then there should be more opportunities to parasitize them. So of course this means I got to spend my summer burning stuff. So here I am setting plants on fire. That's the first part of it. And what happens is there's a flush of root growth. So I took cores of my burned plants. As you can see in number 2, I washed them to make sure all the dirt was gone and to make sure I actually got the right roots. And in number 4, I photographed these in my homemade darkroom. And in number 5, I analyzed them using an image root analyzing software. In this, I was able to compare burned and unburned plants, so my control was unburned and my treatment was burned. And I was able to come to conclusion after this that actually after 30 days, there was no significance in burning my plants. So you can imagine after burning in the middle of the summer and washing a bunch of roots, that's not exactly the results that I wanted to conclude with. But actually, there was a distinction between the types of hosts that I was looking at. So I have my shrubs, grasses, and forbs. When you look at the forbs, they had more bushiness and average root width. And if you see the grasses, they had more surface area and length. And when you look at the shrubs, there were more numbers of roots. So these root traits can give us an idea of maybe why they're more susceptible to being parasitized. With that being said, my thesis is, of course, continuing over the summer. I will be looking more at how specific root traits lead to more susceptibility of parasitism. And I'm also looking at genetic diversity and seeing how that might improve or lead to more ideas of how to conserve American chaffseed. But of course, you're wondering, why care? So chaffseed is actually considered a bodyguard. So parasites regulate the types of and amounts of plants in an ecosystem. So in this complex web of animals and insects and plants, If we were to remove chaff seed, you would actually increase the amount of grasses, which would then outcompete the forbs. And those insects that pollinate the forbs would be displaced. And then you have the mammals and the birds would be displaced. And of course, the web continues to collapse until eventually, well, we don't want to get there, right? So our species are very important. Every species is very important to the puzzle. So we just want to make sure we don't lose any more pieces. Thank you.